The Postman Always Rings Twice by James M. Cain is one of my favorite novellas. And The Postman Always Rings Twice, starring Lana Turner and John Garfield, is one of my favorite movies, particularly film noirs. Now, focusing solely on the novella by James M. Cain, I'm going to talk about the three major characters: Nick Papadakis, Cora Smith turned Cora Papadakis, and Frank Chambers. They are three very finely etched characters, etched as complete individuals, but also etched in such a way that they represent three different and kind of competing ways of dealing with life and of being an American. Okay, now let's start with Nick Papadakis. He is an immigrant to America. He's a Greek American. Now, that puts him in a particular category. Somebody who comes to America in the hopes of making good as an American. Now, he's very conscious of being Greek and of being an American, of having a dual identity, and of bringing those identities together, and of seeing America as his land of opportunity. When he makes a new sign for his business, he puts in his insignia a kind of American and a Greek flag to put together, the two identities. Now, and he's often, so he kind of represents the business person who is from another country and comes to America to make good. There's also other things, though, about him. He also represents the suspicion that too many native-born Americans, not Native Americans, but native-born Americans have of immigrants. Okay? And he also represents the prejudice that many other Americans have traditionally had against people who come from other countries. Throughout the book, he is referred to by Frank and by others as the Greek. Okay? And by referring to him by his ethnicity, they kind of, to some degree, dehumanize him and de-individualize him. Frank Chambers in particular tends to do that, but others do it as well. They call him the Greek. Okay. Another thing about Nick Papadakis that makes him very memorable is that there's a sense of kind of loneliness about him. He wants a male companion. There's no suggestion in this particular novella of homosexual feelings, even, on a subtle level. He has a desire for a buddy. And that desire for a buddy makes it particularly pitiful when Frank turns against him. Okay. That he's been so badly betrayed. Okay. Now let's go to Cora Smith. Cora Papadakis. Okay. Cora Smith is very ambitious. She has the traditional American desire to get ahead. Okay. Now, but she also has the traditional desire to get ahead, to make something of herself, and she is a woman. Now, there is a little bit of a contradiction there, because Americans tend to want people to want to get ahead, to better themselves, but they tend to be a little bit suspicious of it when it's in a woman, because they tend to think that it kind of goes against the nurturing instinct. Okay, now, the other thing about Cora Smith turned Papadakis is she does marry the Greek, even though she has prejudices against him as a Greek. She has prejudices against him as an immigrant. Part of the reason that she married him was to kind of escape sexual harassment from men. They didn't have the term sexual harassment in those days. But she thought, you put a wedding ring on your finger and, you don't get passes. At least not from anybody but your husband. Now, that's not quite true, but that was part of the reason that she married him. Okay, and she intended to stick by him, but when Frank comes along and